Picture a grill. A fresh cut of meat on it. Perfect. You have done this 1,000 times. You cook it. You sit down. You eat it. None of it feels like a decision. So here is a question that sounds far too simple to be interesting. Why was that meat from a cow and not a lion, not a wolf, not a tiger? We hunt animals. We eat animals. We have always done this. But something stops us. Something specific. And it is not what you think. Most people say it is cultural. A taboo. We just do not do that. That is the surface. Underneath it there is a biological reason and a chemical one. And one buried so deep that your body knew the answer before science did. Stay to the end. The last part is not about predators. It is about you. I'm Cairo. I have been dead for 40,000 years. And I tried this. Because the first question is the obvious one. Could you even eat a lion? Yes. Technically yes. Lion meat is not poison. One bite will not kill you. People have eaten lion. Hunters have eaten wolf. There are records of bear, alligator, and shark. So the option exists. It always has. And yet almost no culture on Earth ever built a tradition around eating predators. Obviously, I decided to find out why. Personally. Mayra asked how much lion I thought I was going to be bringing home. Torg said he was not fighting a lion for a bad meal. Ozu said nothing at all, which should have told me everything. So I went. Just me, one spear, and a completely incorrect theory. And the reason it was incorrect is one of the most elegant laws in nature. It is called the 10% rule. Every time energy moves up the chain, it collapses. A blade of grass holds energy from the sun. That is where all of it starts. A deer eats the grass and keeps about 10%. The rest is burned staying alive. Then a lion eats the deer, and the same thing happens again. 10% kept, 90% gone. Every step up the chain, cut to 1/10 of what it was. So by the time you eat the lion, you're eating the leftovers of leftovers. Here is the cost. A lion has to eat 15 to 20 pounds of meat a day. That is an enormous amount of prey, burned down to keep one animal alive. Mira had already worked this out. She was standing there pointing at a deer. Risk your life for a lion, or take the deer and risk almost nothing. One of those feeds you. The other is a story your family tells afterwards. The maths was obvious. It has always been obvious. You go for the prey. I went for the lion. I would like to be honest about how that went. Tor carried me home. He mentioned the bad meal twice on the way, but the energy is only half of it. The other half is completely invisible, and it is sitting inside every apex predator alive right now, including that one. It is called biomagnification. Toxins enter the food chain at the very bottom. Pollutants in water, heavy metals in soil, chemicals absorbed by plants and tiny creatures. A small fish eats thousands of those organisms, each carrying a dose too small to matter. Not enough to harm it, but it does not leave. It stays in the fish. A bigger fish eats thousands of the small ones. Now the dose is concentrated, still survivable. Then a predator fish eats thousands of those. By the top, the concentration is not slightly higher. It can be millions of times higher. Not a theory. In 1966, scientists were studying eagles dying by the Great Lakes. They were not being poisoned directly, they were eating fish. The fish had absorbed a pesticide called DDT from the entire chain beneath them. By the time it reached the eagles, their eggs were cracking before they could hatch. They were not killed by what they ate. They were killed by what their food ate. That is what sits inside a predator. Mercury, lead, chemicals a body cannot break down. They collect in fat. They build across a whole lifetime. Nothing takes them back out. You already know the edge of this. You have been told to be careful with tuna. Not because tuna is dangerous, because tuna is a large predatory fish, high enough on the chain that its mercury is measurable, worth monitoring, in a fish. Now picture a bear, a wolf, an orca. That load is not higher. It is extraordinary. And all of that is before the parasites. Predators eat raw flesh constantly, and their muscle host thinks that evolved for exactly that. The famous one is trichinella. It lives in the muscle tissue of carnivores. Eat it undercooked, and the larvae hatch in your gut and migrate into your muscles. You swell. Your fever climbs. The pain is severe. Historically, it was often fatal. Bear meat is the most documented source of trichinella in the world, and bear is the one large predator humans have actually eaten throughout history. Ozu's rule was simple. Bear gets cooked all the way through. Every single time. Not for the taste, because the alternative had been demonstrated, and everyone remembered it. Now here is the part that makes all of this genuinely strange. There is a force older than the chemistry, and it evolved inside you. It is disgust, and it is not something you were taught. Researchers keep finding the same pattern. Carnivore meat is avoided almost everywhere, across cultures with no contact, no trade, and no shared history. The same answer. Paul Rozin spent decades studying disgust and what it protects people from. Disgust is the emotion that guards the mouth. It decides what is allowed in. The evolutionary reading is simple, and it is an argument, not a proven fact. Ancestors who felt nothing about eating predators sometimes died. Toxins, parasites, slow ones. Ancestors who felt a gut-level resistance and could not have told you why, lived. They survived. They had children. The feeling traveled. You are carrying it right now. Right now, imagine a thick, juicy wolf steak. Something in you reacted before you finished reading the sentence. Some of that is learned, but you did not decide it, and neither did your parents. But here is the twist, because not every predator is off the list. We eat alligator, we eat shark, we eat bear, we eat squid and octopus. What those have in common is position, low enough on the chain, or eaten rarely enough. So the rule was never that you cannot eat a predator. The rule is that the higher you go, the more dangerous the accumulation becomes. And the ones at the very top spent entire lifetimes concentrating it. They are not just animals. They are living archives of everything beneath them. Every animal you have ever eaten sat low enough that the load was survivable, low enough for the parasites, low enough that your disgust never once fired. The cow is not a preference. It is a calculation, run without microscopes or chemistry. They made it feel wrong. That is why you are here.